The ambulance's fluorescent lights were too bright. That was the first coherent thought I had, lying on the gurney and feeling the vehicles slither in traffic. My head throbbed where something, maybe the window, had opened a gash above my left eyebrow. The young paramedic, her name tag reading Shenna, pressed gauze against the wound while her partner drove. "Sir, can you tell me your name?" "Evan Mitchell." "Good. Do you know what day it is?" "Thursday, March 14th. She nodded, satisfied my brain was still working despite the ringing in my ears. The accident replayed in fragments, the green light, I foot on the gas, then the screech of tires and a red pickup truck materializing from nowhere on my left. The impact had spun my car like a top before slamming it into a light pole. "Mr. Mitchell, I need your emergency contact. My wife, Claire Mitchell." I recited the number from memory. 10 digits I'd known for 8 years. Jenna pulled out her phone and dialed. I watched her face as it rang and rang and rang. "Voicemail," she said. "I'll try again." She did. Same result. Third time, nothing. "Maybe she's in a meeting," Jenna offered, but I saw the awkwardness in her eyes. It was 8:47 p.m. Claire wasn't in any meeting. "Let me try," I said. She might not answer unknown numbers. Jenna hesitated, then handed me her phone. I dialed Claire's number, my fingers leaving small smears of blood on the screen. She answered on the first ring. The sound hit me before her voice did. Bass-thumping laughter, glasses clinking. A bar, a club, somewhere loud and alive with people having a good time. "Hello." Her voice was light, relaxed, happy. "Claire, it's me." A pause. The background noise suddenly muffled, like she'd cupped her hand over the phone or moved to another room. "Evan? Where are you calling from?" "I was in an accident. I'm in an ambulance. They're taking me to St. Mary's." Silence stretched between us. In that silence, I heard what she didn't say, no gasp of fear, no immediate panic, just the quiet calculation of someone whose evening had been interrupted. "Oh my God, are you okay?" "I'll be right there." She hung up before I could respond. I handed the phone back to Jenna. She took it gently, like I might break. "She's coming," I said. But something had already shifted in my chest, a hairline crack in the foundation of everything I thought I knew. St. Mary's emergency room smelled like industrial cleaner and anxiety. The doctor, a tired man in his 50s with kind eyes, stitched my forehead while explaining I had a mild concussion and bruised ribs. "Nothing broken. Lucky," he said. "The other driver had run a red light. I could have died." "Is there someone coming to pick you up?" "You shouldn't be alone tonight with a concussion. My wife's on her way." He nodded and left me in the waiting area with a sheet of instructions about warning signs and when to return. I found a chair facing the entrance and settled in to wait. 1 hour passed. I called her cell from the hospital phone. It rang 6 times and went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. 2 hours. The waiting room emptied and refilled with new tragedies. A mother with a feverish toddler, an elderly man clutching his chest, a teenager with a skateboarding injury and his embarrassed father. 3 hours. At 11:52 p.m., Claire burst through the automatic doors like she was making an entrance at a gala. She wore a black dress that cost more than some people's rent, one I'd never seen before. Heels that added 4 inches to her height. Her makeup was perfect, her blonde hair swept up in an elegant twist. This morning, when I'd left for work, she'd been in yoga pants and an old college sweatshirt. She'd said she was having a quiet day at home, Maybe some laundry, maybe reorganizing the guest bedroom closet. She spotted me and rushed over, her heels clicking against the linoleum like a countdown. "Baby, I'm so sorry." She reached for me, tried to pull me into a hug. Traffic was absolutely insane, and my phone died. "And where were you?" The question stopped her mid-reach. Her arms hovered for a moment before dropping to her sides. "I was at Lan's girls' night. I told you about it last week." She hadn't told me about it last week. "You were at Lauren's." "Yes." Her smile was back now, the one she used when she wanted something. "We lost track of time, and you know how Lauren is with the wine." And I heard him. "Claire." Her face flickered, just for a fraction of a second. But I'd spent 12 years in the Army Corps of Engineers learning to read terrain, to spot the subtle signs of instability before such a chalas. I knew how to see what people tried to hide. "What?" She laughed, but it came out wrong. "Heard who?" "Evan, you hit your head. The doctor said you'd have a concussion." "You're probably confused." "When I called from the paramedic's phone," I said, keeping my voice level. "You answered on the first ring, but when they called from the ambulance 3 times, you let it go to voicemail. You were somewhere loud. A club, a bar. And I heard a man's voice right before you answered. He made you laugh." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stood up, my ribs screamed in protest, but I didn't let it show on my face. "Don't come home tonight." I walked past her toward the exit. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Ivan, wait. You're being ridiculous. You have a head injury." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. I don't know what she saw in my eyes, but she let go like she'd touched something hot. "Ivan." I kept walking. The Uber driver was a middle-aged guy named Terence who took one look at my stitched-up face and decided not to make small talk. I appreciated that. I gave him an address across town. Not my house, not a hotel, but the home of Victor Reeves. Victor and I had served together back in another life. He'd been a JEG officer. I'd been in the Corps of Engineers. Different worlds in the army, but we'd ended up stationed at the same base in Germany for 3 years. When his son Marcus was 17, he'd wrapped his car around a tree 2 blocks from my house. I'd been driving home from a late meeting and found him, pulled him from the wreckage before the fire spread. The doctor said another 5 minutes and he wouldn't have made it. Victor had never forgotten. Neither had I. He answered the door in a bathrobe, his reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. He was 52 now, his hair more grey than black, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. "Jesus Christ, Evan, what happened to your face?" "Car accident." "I'm fine." He studied me for a long moment. Victor had spent 20 years as a divorce lawyer after leaving the army. He'd seen every version of human misery that marriage could produce. I watched him, read the situation in my posture, my expression, the way I was standing on his doorstep at nearly midnight. "Who do I need to destroy?" he asked. "My wife." He stepped aside to let me. Victor's home office was a testament to organized chaos, legal books stacked on every surface, case files arranged in a system only he understood, a whiteboard covered in notes from whatever client was currently consuming his attention. He poured us both whiskey and sat across from me. "Tell me everything." I did. The accident, the missed calls, the immediate answer to an unknown number, the background noise, the lies. When I finished, Victor was quiet for a moment. "Do you have proof of an affair?" "Not yet, but I will." He nodded slowly. Okay, let's talk about what we're working with. He pulled out a legal pad. You and Claire have a prenup. I should know. I helped draft it. 8 years ago, when Claire and I got engaged, her father, Raymond, had insisted on a prenuptial agreement. I hadn't minded. I'd built my architectural firm from nothing, working 18-hour days for 5 years before I'd even been able to pay myself a real salary. I wasn't about to let anyone take that away from me. The prenup protects your firm, your assets before marriage, and anything you built during the marriage, Victor continued. Claire's entitlements are limited to specific conditions. But here's what matters right now. Paragraph 14, the infidelity clause. Bingo. Victor actually smiled. Your father-in-law is an old-school Southern gentleman. He insisted on that clause. If either party is proven to have engaged in extramarital relations, they forfeit any claim to alimony and must return gifts valued over $10,000. I thought about what Claire had received over the years. The Cartier watch for our 5th anniversary, the Mercedes I'd bought her when she got promoted, the investment account I'd started in her name. If you can prove she cheated, Victor said, she walks away with nothing. Less than nothing. I'll get the proof. My phone buzzed. I'd switched to a backup I kept in my office for emergencies. My main phone had been destroyed in the crash. I looked at the screen. 47 text messages from Claire, 12 missed calls, voicemails ranging from confused to angry to pleading. I turned the phone face down on Victor's desk. I need a hotel accommodation, I said. Somewhere she won't think to look. The next morning, I walked into Mitchell Architecture at 8:30 a.m., same as always. My reflection in the lobby windows looked like I'd lost 5 stitches, bruised face, a cut on my lip I hadn't noticed until this morning. But I wore a clean suit, my tie was straight, and my hands were steady. Grace Porter was already at her desk. She'd been my executive assistant for 7 years, hired straight out of college when my firm was still operating out of a converted warehouse. Now, we occupied the top 3 floors of a downtown high-rise, employed 42 people, and had projects spanning 6 states. Grace had been there for all of it. She looked up when I walked in, and her eyes went wide. Mr. Mitchell, Evan, what happened? Car accident last night. Some idiot ran a red light. She was on her feet immediately, following me toward my office. Are you okay? Should you even be here? Does Claire? I'm fine. I stopped at my office door and turned to face her. And Grace, Claire's not in my life anymore. Her expression shifted. Surprise, yes, but underneath it, something else. Recognition, maybe, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. Okay, she said quietly. Then, can I get you some coffee? That was Grace. No prying questions, no dramatic reactions, just quiet competence and loyalty. Coffee would be great. And, Grace, I'm going to need the number for Dana Cole. She didn't ask who Dana Cole was or why I needed a private investigator. She just nodded and went to get my coffee. Dana Cole was ex-FBI, which meant she was thorough, discreet, and expensive. She showed up at my office the next afternoon in a plain navy suit, her graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked like Sunhand's favorite aunt, which I imagined was useful in her line of work. Tell me about your wife, she said, pulling out a small notebook. Claire Mitchell, Anne Talon. Fenty, 5 years old. Interior designer at Westbrook Interiors. She doesn't own the firm, she just works there. We've been married 8 years, together for 10, no children. And why do you believe she's having an affair? I explained what had happened, the accident, the phone calls, the lies. Dana listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes. Do you have any idea who the man might be? No. I paused, thinking. But there are patterns. She's been working late more often in the last few months, going to the gym 3 or 4 times a week, when she used to barely manage twice. And I found receipts for lingerie I've never seen. Where did you find the receipts? In her purse. I wasn't looking for them. I was looking for her car keys because she'd asked me to move her car. They were just there. Dana nodded. Any changes in your intimate life? I appreciated that she asked directly without being salacious about it. We've been less frequent. She's often tired, has headaches, the usual excuses. And financially, any unusual spending. I haven't looked closely yet. We have a joint account, but she has her own cards, too. Dana closed her notebook. Give me a week. I'll need her daily schedule, her phone number, the make and model of her car, and photos of her, preferably recent ones. I can get you all of that. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Mr. Mitchell, I've done this job for 15 years. I've seen every kind of cheating there is. Can I give you some advice? Please, don't confront her yet. Whatever you're feeling right now, the anchor, the betrayal, don't let it make you stupid. The more she thinks she's getting away with it, the sloppier she'll get. And sloppy means evidence. I understand. One more thing. Her eyes met mine. Some clients, when they get the proof, they fall apart. Others get vindictive in ways that hurt them more than the cheating spouse. What kind of client are you going to be? I thought about that question for a long moment. The patient kind, I said finally. I was in the army for 12 years. I know how to wait for the right moment to act. Dana smiled just slightly. Good. I'll be in touch. 3 days after I hired Dana, Claire showed up at my office. I was in a meeting with 2 junior architects when Grace bust my fun. Your wife is in the lobby. Security stopped her per your instructions. She's not happy about it. I excused myself from the meeting and walked to the window. 15 floors below, I could see the main entrance, and there was Claire gesturing wildly at 2 of our security guards. Even from this distance, I could read her body language, the entitled outrage, the disbelief that anyone would dare deny her access. I watched her for 5 minutes. She tried calling my office phone. I could see her holding her cell to her ear. She tried the main line and must have gotten Grace because she started gesturing even more frantically. Finally, she gave up. I watched her storm to her car, slam the door, and peel out of the parking lot. I felt nothing. That scared me more than anything else. Day 7. Dana called me into her office, a nondescript suite in a building downtown that could have belonged to an accountant or a tax attorney. She slid a manila envelope, a hostess. I found him. I opened the envelope. Photographs, timestamps, hotel receipts. The first photo showed Claire entering the Monarch Hotel, a boutique place downtown known for its discretion. The second showed her at the front desk checking in. The third showed her in the elevator with an and. I recognized him immediately. Derek Lawson. The air left my lungs like I'd been punched. You know him, Dana said. It wasn't a question. He's a real estate developer. We've worked together on 3 major projects. He's been to my house. He's eaten dinner at my table. I introduced him to my wife at a company function 4 years ago. Dana nodded. The affair has been going on for at least 6 months, based on the pattern I've established. They meet every Tuesday and Thursday at the Monarch. She checks in under a fake name, Linda Gray, and pays for the room with a credit card you probably don't know exists. She pulled out more photos, Derek and Claire in the hotel lobby, standing close, Claire laughing at something he said, her hand on his chest, the two of them getting into the elevator together. And then one more them leaving. 2 hours later, Claire's hair was different than when she went in. Her makeup was smudged. "I'm sorry," Dana said. "I know this isn't what you wanted to find. I looked at the photos for a long time, my wife, my professional associate, 2 people I had susset. Is there more? Probably. But this is enough for your purposes. You wanted proof. You've got it." I gathered the photos carefully, putting back in the envelope. "I need you to keep watching," I said. "At least another 2 weeks. Can you do that?" "Of course. What are you looking for?" "Everything. Patents, communications, financial transactions. I want to know the full scope of this before I make any moves." Dana studied me with those sharp ex-FBI eyes. "You're not going to confront her." "Not yet." "Why?" I stood up, tucking the envelope inside my jacket. "Because Derek Lawson is married. He has 10 children, and his entire business is built on his reputation as a family man. His biggest investor is a conservative family fund that dropped another developer last year for having an affair." Understanding dawned on Dana's face. "You want to burn them both." I shook my hand, I said quietly. He looked me in the eye at dinner parties, talked about how lucky I was to have canned, and the whole time he was sleeping with her. He ate my food, drank my wine, and laughed at me behind my back. I met Dana's eyes. "Yes, I want to burn them both." That night I went home for the first time since the accident. Claire was out. I'd confirmed with Dana that she had a work dinner scheduled, which meant she was probably at the Monarch. The house felt different. Same furniture, same artwork on the walls, same photos of our wedding and various vacations. But now it felt like a museum exhibit, a reconstruction of a marriage rather than the real thing. I went through her things methodically. I'd been trained to search back in the army, and the skills came back easily. I found the hidden credit card statements in a folder labeled recipes in her desk drawer. 4 months of charges, mostly hotels, restaurants, lingerie shops, a pattern of spending that told a story. I found the second phone in her gym bag, tucked into an interior pocket. A cheap prepaid smartphone, the kind you buy at a convenience store. I turned it on. The text conversation with D went back almost 7 months. I read through them, forcing myself not to react. The explicit messages, the romantic declarations, the plans to meet, the excuses they'd use, the lies they'd tell their spouses. But it was the complaints about me that cut deepest. He doesn't suspect anything. He's too trusting, always has been. I wish he had half your passion. He's so boring, so predictable. All he cares about is work. He doesn't see me anymore. I feel more alive in 2 hours with you than I do in 2 months with him. I took photos of everything with my own phone, the credit card statements, the texts, the calendar entries. Then I put everything back exact I'd found it. When I left the house, it was close to midnight. Claire still wasn't home. I went back to my hotel room and sat in the dark for a long, thinking about the man I'd been 2 weeks ago, the husband who trusted his wife, the professional who trusted his colleague, the fool who never saw what was right in front of him. That man was dead now. The man who remained was going to make them pay. Victor's office. Tay 10. He spread the evidence across his conference table: photographs, financial records, text transcripts. His face was grim. "This is comprehensive," he said. "More than enough to trigger the prenup's infidelity clause. She loses everything. I want more than the prenup." Victor looked up. "What do you mean?" "Derek Lawson has built his entire business on the image of a devoted family man. His investor newsletters feature Sundin with his wife and kids. He sponsors little league teams. He gives speeches about values-based business practices." I pulled out another file. This one contained research I'd done myself over the past few days. The Harrison Family Trust is his biggest investor. They're evangelical conservatives who take moral character seriously. Last year, they pulled $23 million from a developer who got caught having an affair with his secretary. Victor let out a low whistle. "You want to expose him?" "Not just expose him. I want to dismantle everything he's built. I want him to lose his investors, his reputation, his marriage. I want him to know what it feels like to have everything taken away." "That's a tall order." "I've spent 12 years building things. I know how structures work, what makes them strong, what makes them weak. I know which beam you pull to bring the whole thing down." Victor was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, a cold expression that reminded me why he was considered one of the most feared divorce attorneys in the state. "Okay," he said, "let's build a strategy." The hardest part was pretending nothing had changed. Day 12. Derek and I had a scheduled project meeting, the final design review for a mixed-use development we'd been working on for 18 months. I walked into the conference room at his office, shook his hand, and smiled like he hadn't been sleeping with my wife for half a year. "Ivan, great to see you. How's that beautiful wife of yours?" It took every ounce of military discipline not to react. "She's wonderful," I said. "Working hard, staying busied. You know Claire?" "I sure do." He laughed. "Yes, you do." The meeting lasted 2 hours. I was professional, focused, charming. I answered questions about the design, discussed timeline adjustments, made small talk about golf and summer vacation plans. But I was watching him, reading him. Derek was nervous. He checked his phone constantly, laughed too loudly at things that weren't funny, kept fidgeting with his wedding ring. He was a man waiting for the other shoe to drop. He just didn't know I was the one holding it. Day 14. I went through our financial records in detail, every joint account, every shared credit card, every automatic payment. What I found made the betrayal even worse. Over the past 3 years, Claire had been siphoning money from our joint account in small amounts, 500 here, 800 there. The withdrawals were random enough that I'd never noticed them on our statements. She'd labeled them as things like home goods, or car maintenance, or professional development. The total 47,000. She'd funneled the money into a separate savings account in her name only, an account I hadn't known existed until Dana found it. And from that account, she'd been paying for the hotel rooms, the lingerie, the secret credit card bills. She was funding her affair with money she'd stolen from our marriage. I added the financial records to my file. Day 16. A calculated risk. I called Megan Lawson. "Ivan, how nice to hear from you." Megan's voice was warm, unsuspecting. She'd always been kind to Claire and me at social functions. A genuine person in a world full of fakes. Derek mentioned you two had a meeting last week. He said the project is coming along beautifully. It is, I said. Listen, Megan, I'm calling because, well, Claire and I are going through some things right now. Marriage stuff. Nothing too serious, I hope. But I've been distracted. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do? That's kind of you. Actually, I was wondering, has Derek seemed distracted lately? He was a little off at our meeting, and I want to make sure nothing's wrong on his end. I value our professional relationship. Silence on the line. When Megan spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. Now that you mention it, he has been working late a lot recently. And he's been strange about his phone. Keeps it with him constantly, even in the shower. I asked him about it, and he said work was just stressful. That's probably all it is, I said. I'm sure it's nothing. But I'd planted the seed. Megan was a smart woman. She'd start watching. She'd start noticing. And eventually she'd start looking. Day 18. Grace came to my office and closed the door behind her. I need to tell you something, she said. I should have told you weeks ago that I wasn't sure and I didn't want to be wrong. I gestured for her to sit. What is it? She took a breath. 6 months ago, I saw Claire at the Monarch Hotel. I was meeting a friend for drinks at the bar there, and I saw her in the lobby. She was with a man. I didn't recognize him at first. I only saw them from behind, heading toward the elevators. My stomach tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. Go on. I didn't think much of it at the time. I thought maybe it was a client or a work thing. But then, at the industry gala last month, I saw him again. He came up to shake your hand, and I recognized him. Same build, same way of walking. Who was it? Grace met my eyes. Derek Lawson. I let the silence stretch between us. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't certain. Because I didn't want to destroy your marriage over something I might have imagined. Because, her voice cracked slightly. Because you're a good man and you deserve better, and I didn't know how to tell you. Grace, you're not the one who should be sorry. She nodded, composing herself. What are you going to do? I'm going to handle it. But I need to know, can I trust you completely? You've always had my trust, Evan. I've worked for you for 7 years. I've seen how hard you've built this company, how fairly you treat people. I would never do anything to hurt you. Then I need you to keep this conversation between us. Don't mention it to anyone, and if Claire calls the office again, I want to know immediately. Done. After she left, I added her to my mental list of allies. Victor, Dana, now Grace. The pieces were coming together. Day 22, the dinner party. I called Claire and asked her to meet me at Lumiere, the French restaurant where we'd celebrated our engagement 8 years ago. Her voice trembled with hope when she accepted. She thought I was ready to reconcile. She wore the red dress, the one I'd bought her for our 5th anniversary. She'd done her hair and makeup with obvious care. When she walked into the rest, several heads turned to follow her. My wife was beautiful. She always had been. But beauty without character is just a mask, and I'd finally seen what was underneath. Ivan. She slid into the chair across from me, reaching for my hands. I've missed you so much. I've missed you too. The lie came easily. I had learned from the best. I'm so glad you called. I know things have been difficult, but we can work through this. I know we can. I signaled the waiter and ordered wine, her favorite, a Bordeaux we discovered on our honeymoon in France. "I want to apologize," she said once the wine arrived, "for the confusion at the hospital. I should have been there. I was at a work event, a client dinner that I forgot to mention, and when you called, I panicked. I handled everything wrong." "It's okay, is it?" Her eyes searched mine. "Because you moved out. You won't take my calls. I've been going out of my mind. Claire." I took her hand, rubbing my thumb across her knuckles. "I was hurt. I reacted badly. The accident shook me up, and when you weren't there, I jumped to conclusions." Relief flooded her face. "I would never intend to hurt you. You know that, right? You know I love you." "I know." The dinner lasted 2 hours. I was charming, attentive, warm. I asked about her work. I told her about my projects. I let her believe that everything was going to be okay. When we got home, I told her I needed a few more days before I was ready to fully move back in. She was disappointed but understanding. "Take all the time you need," she said. "I'll be here." I kissed her forehead and left. What she didn't know, I needed her to feel safe, to stop being careful, to go back to her regular pattern of lies and deception. Sloppy means evidence. Dana's words echoed in my mind. Day 25. The trap sprung. Dana's report arrived by encrypted email. Claire had met Derek at the Monarch again, their usual Tuesday appointment. But this time, Dana had positioned herself perfectly. She'd captured everything: the embrace in the parking garage, the kiss in the lobby when they thought no one was watching, the two of them entering the room and leaving it 2 hours later with that unmistakable post-encounter glow. But the best part came from a reflection in a lobby window. Claire had been texting while she waited for her car to be brought around. Dana had enhanced the image. "He doesn't know anything. I have him wrapped around my finger. We're good." I printed the photo and added it to my file. Day 27. Raymond Taylor's estate. Claire's father lived in a restored Georgian mansion 20 minutes outside the city. He'd built his fortune in commercial real estate during the 80s and retired at 55 to manage his investments and play golf. He was old Lenny now, comfortable in a way that made you forget he'd started as a contractor's son from rural Alabama. Raymond greeted me at the door himself, unusual since he typically had staff for that. I was surprised to get your call. He led me into his study, a room lined with books he'd actually read and decorated with photographs of deals he'd actually closed. "Claire doesn't know you're here, I assume?" "None, and I'd prefer it stays that way for now." He poured us both bourbon, the good stuff from a crystal decanter that had belonged to his father, and settled into his leather chair. "You were at the prenup signing," I said. "You insisted on the infidelity clause. Do you remember why?" Raymond's expression shifted. He suddenly looked 10 years older. "I was hoping it would never matter, but you suspected it might." He was quiet for a long moment. "My daughter, I love her. She's my only child. But I'm not blind to who she is. She's always been easily tempted. Before you, there was a young man, Philip something. Nice boy from a good family. She destroyed him, had an affair with his business partner, of all people. Philip found out, confronted the partner, and ended up getting arrested for assault. His career never recovered. I hadn't an impound Philip. Claire had never mentioned him. I had hoped," Raymond continued, "that marriage would settle her, that you would settle her. You were different from the men she usually dated, solid, reliable, someone who wouldn't tolerate her games. He looked at me with something like grief in his eyes. What did she do, Evan? I showed him everything. The photographs, the texts, the hotel receipts, the secret credit cards, the skimmed money. All of it spread across his antique desk like an autopsy report. When he finished looking, he was pale. Derek Lawson, he said flatly. That man pitched me an investment opportunity 2 years ago. Something felt wrong about him, so I turned it down. I had no idea. Neither did I. Raymond looked at the photos again, then pushed them away like they were contaminated. What do you need, Fanny? Nothing. I just wanted you to know the truth before everything becomes public. What's going to happen? I gathered the evidence and returned it to my briefcase. Justice. That night, Raymond called Claire. I wasn't there, but I can imagine how it went. His careful questions, her smooth lies. She would have assured him that everything was fine, that she and Evan were so happy. She had no idea her father was listening with new ears. Day 28, the corporate strike. I spent the morning reviewing my partnership agreements with Derek's company. Standard contracts mostly, the kind of boilerplate that no one reads until they need to. But there, in paragraph 7 of the partnership terms, was exactly what I was looking for, a morality clause. Either party may terminate this agreement if the other party engages in conduct that materially damages the professional reputation of the first party or compromises the integrity of joint ventures. Derek sleeping with my wife definitely qualified. I picked up the phone and called the Harrison Family Trust. Margaret Harrison, the trust's managing director, answered on the second ring. I'd met her twice at industry events. A sharp woman in her 60s who'd inherited her father's business acumen and her mother's uncompromising moral standards. Mrs. Harrison, this is Evan Mitchell. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Evan, what a pleasant surprise. How can I help you? I wanted to give you advanced notice about something. My firm has decided to withdraw from our partnership with Lawson Development, effective immediately. Silence. Then, may I ask why? I've become aware of some personal issues that may affect our working relationship, issues of character and conduct. I felt it was only fair to inform you before any public announcements are made. Another pause. I appreciate your candor, Evan. Is there anything more specific you can tell me? I think the details will become clear soon enough. But suffice it to say, I no longer feel comfortable associating my firm's reputation with Mr. Lawson's. I see. Her voice had cooled by several degrees. Thank you for letting me know. After I hung up, I drafted formal withdrawal letters for all 3 joint projects. No accusations, no explanations, just a simple statement that Mitchell Architecture was terminating the partnership effective immediately due to irreconcilable differential standards. Derek called within the hour. Evan, what's going on? I just got your letters. You're pulling out of everything. But the timeline, the investors, the permits, you can't just... Oh, I can. Actually, check paragraph 12 of our partnership agreement. Is this about Claire? I let the silence stretch. Listen, if someone's told you something, goodbye, Derek. I hung up day 29. Megan called. I was in my hotel room reviewing the next day's schedule when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Even. Her voice was thick with tears. I found texts on Derek's phone. With your wife. I know. Silence. Then. You knew. I've known for 3 weeks. Why didn't you tell me? I'd thought about this conversation, rehearsed it in my mind, because you wouldn't have believed me. You would have thought I was crazy or vengeful or mistaken. You needed to find out yourself. She was crying now, the sound muffled like she was pressing her hand over the phone. What am I going to do? What do you want to do? I want to destroy him. Then let's talk. Megan came to Victor's office the next morning. She looked like she hadn't slept, eyes red, rimmed, face pale, hands trembling around her coffee cup. But underneath the grief, I saw something else rage. I've been married to him for 14 years, she said. I gave up my career to raise his children. I hosted his business dinners. I smiled at his investors and pretended everything was perfect. And the whole time, her voice broke. Victor handed her a tissue. Mrs. Lawson, he said gently, what can you tell us about your husband's finances? Over the next 2 hours, Megan laid out everything she knew. As Derek's wife, she had access to his home office, his personal files, his computer passwords. She'd spent the night going through everything. What she found was bigger than an affair. Derek had been using company funds to finance his time with Claire. Expensive dinners at restaurants where they'd never be recognized. Jewelry, a tennis bracelet, earrings, a necklace, hotel rooms, weekend getaways disguised as business trips. The total over 120,000. This isn't just adultery, Victor said, his eyes lighting up in that predatory way of his. This is embezzlement. He's been stealing from his own company. Megan nodded. I took photos of everything. Bank statements, receipts, credit card records. He never thought I'd look. I watched her across the table. This woman I barely knew, whose life had been destroyed by the same 2 people who destroyed mine. We were connected now, bonded by betrayal. What are you going to do with the evidence? I asked. I'm going to give it to his business partners. Let them conduct an audit. Let them find what I found. She looked at me with fierce determination. Then I'm going to divorce him and take everything. Day 29 continued. The alliance. Megan and I spent 3 hours in Victor's conference room that night, mapping out our strategy. She was sharper than I'd expected. 14 years as a corporate wife had taught her more about business than she let on. Derek's partners are old school, she said. Alan Norman and Stephen Banks. They've been with him since the beginning. If I just show them the evidence, they might try to cover it up to protect their investments. So we don't give them that option. Exactly. She pulled out her phone. I have email access to Derek's work account. He never changed the password after he set it up on my laptop. There are emails in here that show he knew the funds were being misused. Internal communications about creative accounting. Victor leaned forward. That's not just embezzlement. That's potentially fraud. I know. Megan's smile was cold. I'm not just going to divorce him. I'm going to make sure he never recovers. We divided responsibilities. Megan would compile the financial evidence and present it to Derek's partners with the implicit threat of going public if they didn't act. Victor would handle the legal paperwork for both divorces, ensuring maximum damage to Derek through complaints and coordinated filings. And I would handle the professional side, making sure Derek's reputation in the development community was thoroughly destroyed. One more thing, I said as the meeting wrapped up. Claire's parents. Her father knows everything, but I want to make sure her mother finds out too. preferably from someone in her social circle rather than from me. Megan nodded. Nancy Taylor. She's on 3 charity boards with my sister. And Lao, I can make sure the right people start asking questions. Do it. The day 30. Judgment Day. I had Claire meet me at the house. Our house? The one I designed myself. The one I'd thought we'd grow old in together. She was nervous when she arrived. I could see it in the way she kept tucking her hair behind her ear and the bright smile she gave me. Evan, I'm so glad we're finally to talk properly. I know things have been strange, but... Sit down, Claire. Something in my voice stopped her. She sat on the edge of the couch, perched like a bird ready to take flight. I handed her the envelope. She opened it. I watched her face as she looked at the first photograph. Her and Derek in the hotel lobby. The second, them in the elevator. The third, them leaving hours later. By the 5th photograph, her hands were shaking. You're citing infidelity, I said. Dana Cole, she's ex-FBI, by the way, has been documenting your affair for 3 weeks. I have photographs, timestamps, hotel receipts, credit card statements, and text messages. I have your second phone, the one in your gym bag. I have the secret bank account where you've been stashing the $47,000 you skimmed from our joint finances. Ivan, don't. I kept my voice level, but something must have shown in my eyes because she flinched. Don't lie to me again. Not now. She crumbled. It didn't mean anything, she whispered. It was a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up dry cleaning. You've been sleeping with Derek Lawson every Tuesday and Thursday for 6 months. You paid for hotel rooms with money you stole from our marriage. And when I was bleeding in an ambulance, you let my calls go to voicemail because you were too busy partying with him. You were never here! The words exploded out of her. You cared more about work than you ever cared about me. I was lonely, Evan. Derek paid attention to me. He made me feel. I designed buildings for him. I invited him into our home. I trusted him because I trusted you. And the whole time, you were both laughing at me behind my back. Oh, it wasn't like that? He doesn't know anything. I have him wrapped around my finger. That's what you texted him after we had dinner. After you told me you wanted to fix things. The Kellen changed from her face. I can explain. No. I stood up. You can't. You can't explain, and you can't fix this, and you can't make it better. The prenup is ironclad. The infidelity clause is clear. You forfeit all alimony. You return the watch, the car, and the investments, roughly $125,000 in total. You walk away with nothing. Ivan, please. Victor Reeves will be in touch. I suggest you hire a good lawyer. You're going to need one. I won't taunt the door. She scrambled after me, grabbing my arm. What about Derek? What about his wife? Are you going to? I turned to face her one last time. Derek's wife found out. She has evidence that he embezzled over $100,000 from his own company to fund your affair. His business partners are in an audit as we speak. By this time next week, he'll be facing criminal charges. Claire's face went white. You did this, she whispered. You planned all of this. No, I removed her hand from my arm. You did this, both of you. I just made sure you'd face the consequences. I walked out and didn't look back. That night, alone in my hotel room, I finally let myself feel it, grief, the rage, the overwhelming sense of loss. Not for Claire, not for our marriage, but for the man I used to be. the trusting husband, the loyal friend, the knave fool who believed the best in people. I poured myself a whiskey and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness. My phone buzzed. A text from Gracie heard about the confrontation. "Are you okay?" I typed back, "I will be." Another buzz, this time from Victor, Claire's lawyer account. "She wants to negotiate. Tell him no. The prenup is clear." A pause, then "That's what I told him. She's not taking it well." "Good." I finished my whiskey and poured another. Someone out there. Claire was realizing that her carefully constructed world was falling apart. Derek was probably on the phone with his lawyers, trying to figure out how to save his company. Megan was packing her husband's things into boxes. And I was sitting in a hotel room drinking alone, wondering if any of it would make me feel better. It didn't. Not yet. But there was a certain satisfaction in knowing that justice had been served. The next morning, I went to work, just like always. Grace had a coffee waiting on my desk and a sympathetic look in her eyes, but she didn't ask questions. "You have a meeting at 10 with the Henderson Group," she said, "and there's a call scheduled with the Seattle office at 2. Should I cancel anything?" "No. Keep everything as scheduled." "Are you sure?" "After yesterday, Grace..." I looked up from my computer. "I appreciate the concern, but I've been through worse. A lot worse. This is just a divorce. It's not a war zone." She nodded slowly. "Okay. But if you need anything, I'll let you know." She left, closing the door softly behind her. I turned back to my work blueprints and budget reports and contractor estimates. The business of building things. The only thing I'd chilly hit at. The dominoes fell exactly as I'd planned. 3 days after my confrontation with Claire, Derek's business partners concluded their audit. The numbers were worse than even Megan had suspected. Derek had been cooking the books for years, skimming money not just for his affair, but for gambling debts he'd hidden from everyone. He was removed from his own company in an emergency board meeting. The Harrison Family Trust pulled their funding immediately, issuing a statement about maintaining relationships only with businesses that share our commitment to integrity. Without his biggest investors, Derek's development projects collapsed. 2 went into receivership. The third was sold to a competitor at a fraction of its value. Megan filed for divorce a week later. With evidence of adultery and financial misconduct, she was awarded the family home, primary custody of their children, and 60% of their remaining assets. Derek moved into a studio apartment across town. I heard he started drinking heavily. Good. Claire's reckoning was almost anticlimactic by comparison. The prenup was enforced in full. She had to liquidate her investment account to return my gifts. The watch alone was worth more than she had in savings. The car went back. By the time Victor was done, she was left with her clothes, her personal effects, and whatever dignity she could salvage. Raymond cut her off completely. I heard about it second-hand from Grace, who'd stayed in touch some of Claire's former colleagues. He told Claire that he was ashamed of her, that she'd had everything and thrown it away for nothing. Nancy, Claire's mother, was more concerned about the social fallout than her daughter's well-being. She reportedly told Claire that she'd ruined the family's reputation and would need to lay low until people forgot. Claire's social circle, most of whom had been connected to her through my professional network, stopped inviting her to events. The friends she'd thought she had turned out to be acquaintances who'd only tolerated her because of me. She moved to Atlanta a month later. Starting over, I heard, trying to rebuild. I wondered sometimes if she ever thought about what she'd lost. Not just the money or the social status, but the life we could had together, the children we'd talked about having, the future we'd planned. But those thoughts never lasted long. You can't build a future with someone who ends as a partner, just as a means to an end. Claire had married me for what I could provide, not for who I was. And when she found someone who provided more excitement, more attention, more of whatever she thought was missing, she hadn't hesitated to betray everything we'd built together. That was the real lesson, I realized. Not that people can be unfaithful. I'd known that since my first deployment overseas, when I'd seen marriages fall apart under the cess of separation. The real lesson was that some people are simply incapable of loyalty. It's not in their nature, and no amount of love or dedication or trust can change who they fundamentally are. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I was sitting in my office when Grace knocked on the door. "Someone to see you." Says she doesn't have an appointment, but she thinks you'll want to talk to her. "Who is it?" "Megan Lawson." I hesitated, then nodded. "Send her in." Megan looked different than the last time I'd seen her. There was color in her cheeks, and she'd done something with her hair, cut it shorter, maybe. She looked like a woman who'd survived something terrible and come out stronger. "I wanted to thank you," she said, settling into the chair across on my desk, "for telling me the truth, for helping me see what was right in front of me. You did the hard part yourself." "Maybe," she smiled slightly, "but I couldn't have done it without you." She paused. "I also wanted to ask you something." "Go ahead." "How did you do it? How did you say so calm, so controlled through all of it? When I found out about Derek, I wanted to burn the world down. But you were methodical, strategic, like you were executing a plan." I thought about her question for a moment. "I spent 12 years in the army," I said finally. "You learn to compartmentalize, to separate emotion from action. When the bomb goes off, you don't panic. You assess the situation, identify your objectives, and execute. Panic gets people killed. So you just turned off your feelings." "No, I felt everything. The betrayal, the rage, the humiliation. I just didn't let those feelings control what I did. I used them as fuel instead." Megan nodded slowly. "I think I understand." She turned to Ling, then paused at the door. "What are you going to do now?" "Rebuild," I said. "It's what I do." The community center project came to me later. A neighborhood on the south side needed a new gathering space, somewhere for after-school programs, senior activities, community events. The budget was minimal. The timeline was tight. Most architects wouldn't have touched it. I took it pro bono. Grace thought I was crazy. Victor suggested I might still be processing trauma, but the truth was simpler. I'd spent years building beautiful things for people who didn't deserve them. Luxury condos for developers like Derek, vacation homes for trust fund kids who'd never worked a day in their lives. I wanted to build something that mattered. 6 months after the accident, the community center opened. I stood at the back of the crowd during the ribbon-cutting ceremony, watching kids run through spaces I designed. The building was simple, clean lines, lots of natural light, materials chosen for durability rather than style. But it was solid, built to last. A woman appeared at my elbow. Dark hair, intelligent eyes, a press badge hanging from a lanyard around her neck. Evan Mitchell. That's me! I'm Natalie Brooks. I'm writing a piece for the Tribune about architects who give back to their communities. Do you have a few minutes to talk? We found a quiet corner. She asked about the project, why I'd taken it on, what challenges I'd faced, what I hoped it would mean for the neighborhood. I answered honestly, without the usual marketing speak. Can I ask you something off the record? She said when the formal interview was done. Sir, I did some research before coming here. You went through a pretty public divorce recently. Your ex-wife was involved with a developer whose business collapsed around the same time. There's a lot of speculation about what really happened. I met her eyes. Is there a question in there? I guess I'm wondering if this project is related, if it's some kind of penance, maybe, or therapy. I considered my answer carefully. When you design a building, I said, you think about foundations, what you're building on. Because it doesn't matter how beautiful the center is, if the foundation is cracked, the whole thing will eventually fall apart. And your marriage had a cracked foundation. My marriage had no foundation at all. I just didn't realize it until it was too late. She wrote something in her notebook, then looked up at me with a slight smile. That's very philosophical, is it? I shrugged. I'm just an architect. I build things. And when they fall down, I build them again. After the ceremony, I found myself standing alone in the main hall. The crowds had dispersed. The caterers were packing up. The sun was setting through the western windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. My phone buzzed. A text from Victor saw the coverage. Nice building. Drinks later? I text intact, ain't check. Got something I need to do. I thought about the past 6 months as I walked through the halls. The accident that had started everything. The phone call that had shattered my world. The weeks of careful planning, of patient investigation, of building a case that would leave no room for denial or negotiation. Had it been worth it? That was the question I kept asking myself. The revenge, the destruction, the methodical dismantling of 2 lives, Derek's and Claire's, that had once been intertwined with mine. Part of me said no. Part of me wished I could have walked away clean, accepted the betrayal with grace, and moved on without looking back. That would have been the noble thing to do, the high road. But I'd tried the high road before, with commanding officers who were corrupt, with contractors who cut corners, with colleagues who stole credit for my work. The high road was where you went when you were willing to let people get away with hurting you. I wasn't willing, not anymore. So yes, it had been worth it, not because I enjoyed their suffering. I didn't, not really, but because they had needed to face consequences. In a world where people like Derek and Claire got away with their cruelty, there was no justice. And I had spent too much of my life believing in justice to let it go. Now I walked through the empty building one last time, running my hand along the walls I'd designed, the door frames I'd specified, the windows I'd positioned to catch the light just so. This was mine, not Claire's, not Derek's, not anyone else's. Something I'd built with my own hands and my own vision. When I walked out into the evening air, Natalie was waiting by her car. She looked like she was about to leave, then changed her mind. Hey, she called out, a few of us are grabbing drinks at O'Malley's. Want to join? I should have said no. I wasn't ready. It was too soon. There were 1,000 reasons to go back to my apartment, and spend another evening alone. But I was tired of being alone. Tired of letting Hayes' betrayal define my life. Tired of being the victim. Sure, I said. Sounds good. We walked together toward downtown, talking about architecture and journalism and nothing important. And for the first time in months, I felt something like hope. The silent exit was over. Whatever came next, I'd be ready.